So let's do the BFG. So there was a television, made-for-TV movie, the BFG animated movie in 1989, which is very much loved and apparently was a firm favourite of Roald Dahl. Now it comes to the screen in a sort of much more zhuzhy form, as directed by Steven Spielberg, featuring in the lead role Mark Rylance, who of course was so brilliant in Bridge of Spies, doing a performance capture performance. As the big friendly giant. We open in this kind of slightly non-specific London, which seems to meld old and new as the camera moves across the Thames through the House of Parliament to these cobbled streets, and suddenly it's a bit Dickensian, to an orphanage where young Sophie peers into a doll's house. She's like a giant. The next thing you know, a giant's hand reaches in. She is taken off to giant country by the big friendly giant, and her question, of course, is...
But why did you bring me here? Why did you take me?
Well, I had to take you. Because the first thing you'd be doing, you'd be scuttling around and yodeling the news that you were actually seeing a giant. And then there would be a great rumple-dumpus, wouldn't there? And all the human beings would be rummaging and whiffling for the giant what you saw and getting wildly excited, and then they'd be locking me up in a cage to be looked at with all the squiggling, hippo dumplings and crocodile dillies and jiggy raves. And then there would be a gigantic look-see giant hunt for all of the boys.
I won't tell. No one would listen to me anyway. I'm an untrustworthy child.
Terrifically,
it's brilliant.
Terrifically winning performance there by Ruby Barnhill, and of course by Mark Rylance as the big friendly giant, with that lovely scrumdiddlyumptious language.
That delivery is perfect.
Yeah, it is, and of course it sounds something like a mix between Anthony Burgess's Nadsat and Stanley Unwin's Maximos Milodes, and I almost wanted to go straight home and put on Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, which is still one of my favourite narrated records when they were records. So the script for the BFG is written by the late Melissa Matheson, who of course is best known, I think, for writing E.T. And there is a sense of Spielberg's extraterrestrial gem in this. There is one particular shot that I thought very clearly seemed to evoke E.T., but it's also in the general feeling of the piece. I have to say, I liked this very much, and I liked it for a number of reasons. Firstly, on a technical level, I do think that the performance capture work is really well done. I mean, Mark Rylance's performance is terrific, and hats off to everybody involved in the visual effects, which turned that human, flesh and blood performance into the performance that we now have of him as the BFG, which I think it's really brilliantly done. It's vibrant and tender and funny and works in all the ways that you want it to. I think in the case of Ruby Barnhill, she brings something of that independent spirit that I think Mara Wilson brought to Danny DeVito's version of Matilda, which I really, really love. It is interesting that, there have been versions of Roald Dahl that have used stop motion animation, Fantastic Mr. Fox, James and the Giant Peach. That physicality is very important. And one of the problems that you sometimes get with CG is that it can produce a sort of shiny visual surface that appears to lack heft, but I didn't get the feeling with this at all. I mean, you and I think, both had slight worries about the uncanny valley of the Adventures of Tintin, which I never quite settled into the whole performance capture CG visual of that. It always slightly bothered me. You felt the same way, I think, didn't you?
Yes, I think I probably.
But in the case of this, I didn't. I literally ended up. The greatest indication is I didn't end up thinking about the special effects whilst I was watching it. I ended up thinking about the special effects while afterwards. Is there something weird you're looking?
No. I'm just thinking. I think I agree with everything that you said. I wonder if it, even though they obviously have to go, because people know the story, it ends up at Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't.
No, it's not.
It involves the Queen, and there's some laugh out loud moments.
There
there.
really are. Yeah.
But for me, the giant country bit is when it really, really works, and then when we move into the Buckingham Palace section, I think it loses it just a little bit.
Okay, well, I laughed during the Buckingham Palace section. I
absolutely.
laughed like an idiot. I mean,
Queen and the Corgis.
I just laughed. The whiz popping, I just thought was one of
There's
the
a
fun.
lot of whiz
There's a lot of whiz popping, and that's absolutely the whiz popping redemption. There's a lot of whiz popping and not much, but I have no problem with that. So I thought that stuff was laugh out loud funny. I liked the way in which, much as with E.T., the whole thing about E.T. is that Elliot and E.T. are basically the same person, right down to the initials of E.T. And they're both lonely, they're both lost, they're both out of place. And the joy of this is that you get that same sense, the small child, the huge giant, but both basically isolated and looking for some kind of family relationship. And very, very quickly the film establishes that mirror image duality, the sense that they are both looking at this, they are really sort of two sides of the same coin. I think it does that really well. I like the way the music helped with the storytelling. I thought it took us through the emotional peaks and troughs with real sort of balletic grace. I know that there will be some question about whether or not it has the darkness of Dahl, who was, did definitely have a dark side in his writing, which I think, often appealed perhaps more to the kids than one would perhaps want to.
Well, there's a section in the book where the BFG talks about the taste of
there's the whole
giants eating people from around the world.
There's the whole question about sort of vegetarianism versus meat eating, but I liked it very much. We had Spielberg rediscovering his inner child. I think when you look at Hook, which he had spoken about on our program before, and said that at some points he wants to go back and watch Hook to see if there's anything in it that he likes at all. I thought it had that magic which Hook spectacularly didn't have. I thought it had that physicality which Tintin didn't have. I thought it had that charm that E.T. did have, and I was really quite won over by it. I liked it very much.